Well, as we take a look at this week's weather outlook, we have a lot to discuss. So we're going to dive right into it. Joining us now for a conversation, as he always does, we appreciate his time. Eric Snodgrass, Principal Atmospheric Scientist with Nutrient Ag Solutions. Eric, thanks for joining us again here this week. Let's start. I want to start with the cold air. A
Mhm.
lot of frost advisories, freeze warnings throughout the weekend into Monday across really a wide area of the country. Maybe slowing down a little bit of that planting progress and that spring planting idea with just some of that cold weather here over the last couple of days. I would think. I guess give us an update on that cold weather first.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that these cold temperatures we're getting are primarily morning events, right? So we have situations where temperatures are dropping down, touching that 30-degree line, or in some places farther to the north, getting down there into the upper 20s. But then by the middle of the day, we're breaking away toward quite a bit of warmth. So, I just think about it yesterday on Sunday. I went to an 8 a.m. soccer game and I was like 2 layers and full parka. And then by noon, I was shorts and t shirt, right? And I live in central Illinois. So there was actually quite a bit of field work done despite some of the colder weather because it was a bit of a drier weekend for a lot of the corn belt. All the really wet conditions were down south, coming out of parts of Texas all the way over to the Carolinas. So we still have cold air, more of it in place. We got another shot at cold air coming through the corn belt that's going to head into the northeast by midweek this week. But I think after that, we kind of blow the doors open to more normal warmth in spring, which means we're going to have a lot of folks going pretty quickly here. I do not see into May extended time periods of cold weather. So I'm not concerned
Okay.
about seeds sitting in the ground cold and soggy if we get crop planted like this week, for example. But you got to dodge the rain this week. So that's the whole other side of the story.
Yeah, whole other side of the story. We'll get to that here in a moment. Another area that I've been hearing some chatter on social media now all of a sudden about some concerns in the plains of dryness for wheat country, Kansas specifically.
Mhm.
What are you hearing on this? Any updates for us there?
Yeah, it's I'm hearing a lot. A lot of growers have been commenting and messaging me and just discussing how dry things have been in parts of Kansas, especially. That seems to be the epicenter of it. That's not to say there aren't drier places around this area, but I was looking carefully this morning at where the source of that really dry air is, and it's kind of coming out of central Mexico. So we have a major drought in central Mexico, and the geography combined with the way that the flow of the spring pattern has gone, has been able to pull that up through western Texas and New Mexico and just put it into Kansas. So there is a major moisture deficit in that area that has to be overcome in order for it to rain. So in other words, you kind of go in with less than adequate. Any forecast of above average rains in that area, I'm very skeptical on because the atmosphere's been stealing it before it's been getting to the ground in those areas. Outside of that, we got places that need the rain shut off. I mean, there's big areas in the Eastern Corn Belt that are not going to want to see the rain we've got forecast this week. Even parts of the upper Midwest, which have been cold, have also been wet. They'd like to get some heat, some drier weather in as well. And then in Texas, this is amazing. Go to the panhandles, dry. You come down
Mhm.
to like central Texas, well, just this weekend, some places picked up another 3 inches of rainfall. Don't forget that same area a week ago, about 10 days ago, picked up in some spots 10 inches of rain. So the precipitation delivery this spring has been such that I'm finding very few people that are happy with me forecasting it. So I guess we'll leave it at that.
All right. All right. Fair enough. Looking at this week, rain chances, severe weather at all. Give us a rundown of that real quick.
Yeah, so we have a weak system that's going over the U.S. Canada border in the northern plains today, upper Midwest tonight, and gets into New England. That's going to drag a front through the Corn Belt, bring us a chance for some precipitation. The totals are not high, but it's rain. There's going to be some rain coming through with this sagging front. Does it make it down into your neck of the woods? Possibly. Just sneaks through parts of the Mid South, but it's not like it's a big delivery mechanism for heavy rain.
Mhm.
Later this week, though, deep trough comes out of the western plains. There's actually three of them lined up, and as it ejects, we're going to watch for a Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night risk of severe storms all three times in the plains and western corn belt as this next system comes out. But that's a system that's critical because right now the European artificial intelligence forecasting system, which has been one of the better performers, combined with the national blended models, the European model, the GFS, they're all putting heavy rain in that western southwestern corn belt area. So this could be by the end of this week. taking Kansas and the eastern half of the state getting maybe there might be a couple places that touch 2 to 3 inches of rain, and the western half of the state nothing. And that's going to continue just to split this part of the United States somewhere around the 95th to 100th meridian in there. If you're west of it, it's very difficult to see the moisture get back into that area.
Okay. Well, thinking about this week, and then let's look into the month of May here because we're almost to the month of May.
Mhm.
Looking at some of these planting windows, what are we looking at here? Kind of forecasting through the next month. Are we looking at like we're going to have some decent windows to get some field work done here, Eric?
Yes, I think so. I don't think it's going to be wide open, like just
Okay.
everybody goes and there's 2 weeks of just amazing, and the reason for that is that the jet stream just keeps dipping in the west. So if it's going to dip in the west, it's going to come across the central United States out of the southwest, and southwest flow in the jet stream is a stormy pattern. But it doesn't mean we won't find those windows and opportunities in there. It's just it's the temperatures are going to come back to where we want them, but I don't think that the wide open 7, 8, 9 days of no rain are going to be just for everybody. So I'm expecting a
Mm.
pretty stormy May. And again, I know I've joked with you about this in the past, but knowing that several of my friends and colleagues who still get the opportunity to storm chase, they're pretty excited about this May, which means quite a bit of activity in terms of spring thunderstorms. But that's normal,
Mhm.
right? May is
Yeah.
that month, and we love it and we hate it. We need the moisture. We don't like getting slowed down when we're trying to get a crop established.
No, we don't. Well, I know you mentioned this to me too, off air. A lot of long range data is out now, and
Yeah.
thinking through the month of May. Obviously, it's tough to forecast out too terribly far, but we can at least get kind of that idea. To your point of maybe a stormy May. What are some of the latest long range models saying for you?
Yeah, so one important thing is that some of our most aggressive models at bringing in La Nina have backed off recently. So one of the most aggressive models called the CFSV2, which had like 1988 style drought spreading across the country, latest runs it really backed off on that. What do I think is going to happen? Well, history would tell me to tell the cotton belt to be prepared for drier conditions, especially the southwestern cotton belt. So I'm talking about Texas, where we already have that drier air that's there into Kansas. But the CPC just released their newest long range forecast last Friday. And what it did was it took the drought that's in Canada and Mexico and kind of bridged it, which means the plains start off late spring into early summer dry. And then it tries to plant the epicenter by July and August, the epicenter of the driest conditions almost over Kansas City. And if you're east of the Mississippi, they're keeping things wet. Everybody agrees, I think, on the above average activity hurricane season, which is going to be the wild card for late, right? Because you could be in drought and then all of a
Mhm.
sudden one comes up and now you're talking about too much rain. But it seems to be that all of the models want to take this drought episode. This is why we started talking about this today, right? In the plains and just expand it later in the year. I'm talking like July and push it farther into the east, but not too far. And I just will tell you, don't bet the farm on that forecast. There are too many unsettled variables that we haven't got a handle on yet to even make us feel confident about one thing or the other. That's why I'm just keeping the near term sights on where it's too wet and where it's too dry, and how spring planting progresses.
Well, let's wrap up our conversation and talk South America. Sounds like the wet season in Mato Grosso, parts of Brazil, is officially over, Eric. Is that the
Yeah.
case?
Well, we would expect it to be winding down in mid-April to late April, but some of the newest forecasts just shut it off. 10-day forecast from the Euro this morning had most of Mato Grosso, Goiás, Tocantins, Mato Grosso do Sul, Paraná, Sao Paulo, Minas Gerais, nothing. Just done with rain. It's wet in Paraguay, Uruguay, and Rio Grande do Sul, but that's about it. Is it an early exit? Yes, it is a bit of an earlier exit than we'd expect. Is it going to impact crops? The last 2 weeks were wet in those areas. So we have to know if that rain was majorly beneficial as we go into pollination. But we would expect the rest of grain fill, I think, to be on the drier side of average, which means there could be some news coming out that that crop could pull back a bit in size. But to be honest, one of the bigger mysteries for me is forecasting grain fill on safrinha crops. I don't, some of the years I think I see really dry and I'm like, wait a minute, how did they hit these numbers? So maybe it's something I need to go down there and study a bit more. But it is drier now in the forecast.
All right. Well, we appreciate the time as always. Folks can find more details, agweather.com. That's ag-wx.com to find the latest forecast details from Eric Snodgrass and Nutrient Ag Solutions. Eric, thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, sounds good, Jesse.